Hey guys, this is Mike Brown, and this is my evaluation of an online classroom. The classroom I chose was that of another one of Ali Drion's, which was ACT 630, Current Tech in Online Instruction. As we get started here in looking at the main opening page, this is pretty typical of Desire to Learn. However, I think Dr. Drion uses the space here to give us as much information without information overload, if you will. As you scroll down on the left, you have the links to the different modules, and they opened as the course progressed. So not all of these were there, I don't think, when I first took this course. As far as a getting started page, if you follow that link, it takes you to a table of contents, if you will, which has links to everything that the course involves, all the links that are presented to the students. From there is a getting started page with a course overview document. So if I follow that, the course overview explains specifically what the purpose of the course is, how it's run, when meeting times are, and other important information like that. It also expresses that the finickiness of Desire to Learn, so making sure that students understand what they're getting into as far as how to operate the course. Going back to the table of contents, there's also a syllabus that is linked there. As far as the syllabus goes, it's a typical grad class syllabus, having the description from the course catalog, also the focus of the content of course, the grading procedures, or what is going to be expected of the students, as well as the grading procedures are listed as well. And the main focus, or one of the focuses, maybe not the main, but the discussion boards and how they'll be graded within Dr. Drion's course are outlined. Going back to the Getting Started page, there is also a link to the course netiquette. So what is expected as far as netiquette goes for online interactions with other students and the professor, making sure your communication is acceptable, and as far as you're fostering a learning community here. A code of conduct is also presented through the main page here. That is a link to Millersville's code of conduct. But as far as that goes, it's overarching for all of the classes. And one of the things that's also nice is that Dr. Drion includes some response posts of exemplar examples to make sure that students are aware of what is expected of them as far as content posting. As far as a course introduction goes, there isn't a specific video or introduction video about Dr. Drion. I did find one of the activities for this class was a introduction video explaining who the person was. All the students did it. Dr. Drion did one as well, and that was really the only place I found an introduction of him specifically, not just his course material. In looking at the second standard on the QM standards, the learning objectives or competencies, the course itself is broken down into 7 modules. You can see here they're listed off to the side. And each one, as you click that module, you can see what's listed under each topic as you go through the classes. So if I visit one of the first module here, you'll see that each module has the lesson objectives. They're listed at the top. There's also an overview that explains what the purpose of this specific module is. As far as this format goes, this is used for all of the modules, so there isn't different guessing where stuff is going to be located as you jump from module to module throughout the class. Because this is a graduate level course that's been developed by a professor, there's not really a need for state level standards like we would at the grade level, where I teach middle school. However, I can imagine that at some point during the creation of this lesson, there was some set of standards that Dr. Drion had to meet in creating this page or this class online through Millersville. I'm assuming that's behind the scenes, or at least I am not aware of it at this moment. As far as the other content on this page, it's nice to see that Ali includes video introductions for each of the modules as well. So not only is everything given to you in writing, as you can see down here, but he also kind of gives a video explanation of what he's expecting in the class, and making sure that you understand all those pieces that go into what he's asking for that specific module. Scrolling down, we also have all the sources that are going to be used, as well as tutorials, which we'll get to why that's important a little later. So the next standard I'd like to talk about is that of assessment and measurement. As I expressed earlier, there is in the syllabus a grading breakdown, so you can see where all your points would be coming from for this specific course as related to the module and the overview of that module. So that's very important to make sure that students are aware of where their assignments and their evaluations are coming from. He also establishes down here what percentages meet what grade letter, which is pretty standard, but it's still nice to have it in writing, so that way there's no mixing of words when final grades come out. As far as Ali's kind of emphasis on creating a community of learners, he does have the discussion posts that he grades, which is a place where students can kind of express what they've learned, their interpretation of what they've pulled away from each of the modules, which is really important in an online class, making sure that everybody feels that they have received what they needed out of the class, and also that everybody has kind of a voice in the class, which is part of the INACOL standards, but it fits in with the QM as well. I know that each module also has its own grade posting. I'm not going to bring it up because it has my grade specifically on it. However, those grades are then, after they're submitted, Dr. Drian then submits feedback for each submission to make sure that we understand where our grading came from. He also has included this revision and late work assignment policy, which if you are unhappy with your grade, you can resubmit for later, which is a nice feature for the class. As far as instructional materials go, this standard, it's more baked in. You don't really have places I can show you. However, for the course, there is one textbook that was assigned, which was appropriate for the course and used throughout the whole course. It wasn't a textbook that was never touched. We've all had courses that do that. The rest of the resources were uploaded by Ali for us to use throughout the lesson. Each of the modules had its own set of resources that they weren't recycled throughout the entirety of the course. We weren't given one certain resource that we built everything off of. There was a lot of different things that we looked at, which was very appreciative, or I was very appreciative of. I couldn't really tell if there was a cultural bias or any diversity materials, but I didn't notice any. I don't think, as far as that goes, there was any intent for it to be. However, from my experience, the materials would be vetted before they're used anyway, so I would hope that none of that would show up. As far as citations go for stuff that's referenced, if you go back to one of the courses here, or the modules, if I can find it, there we go. As far as the modules go, there's links to the specific sites. There isn't a specific citation page in which he lists everything he uses. However, they are direct links. They're not to a site where he's claiming that these are his by design. So I think proper citation is there. For the learner interaction and engagement standard, once again, Dr. Drian sets up the community of learners, making sure that everybody is actively participating in the discussion, and he himself also does so. He doesn't take a back seat as far as the discussion posts go. He's actively engaged in here. And if I went through these, you would probably see his name show up a bit. He has also made his, if you look at the home page, himself very available. He gives his phone number, his Twitter account, as far as office hours, his Skype, everything that he possibly could to make sure that we are able to get in contact with him if we need so. And, obviously email addresses, but he has also the Millersville as well as a Gmail account to make sure that he meets the needs of those students. For the standard based around course technology, Dr. Dreon has great orientation videos and tutorial videos. So he doesn't expect students to know how to do everything. He's very willing to give explanations. I think as long as you can get to the course, he will be able to work with you, and that's kind of set up in the class. Here's his orientation video for Desire to Learn. I also have a link here. At one point, we utilized Zoom in the class, and it was the first time I had ever used it. As far as Zoom goes, it's a wonderful program, but Dr. Dreon has included a tutorial on how to properly use it, or at least an introduction on how to use it, and he then let us run with it. As far as keeping the materials up to date, they seem to be as up to date as possible. However, every review is done in a snapshot of time, so my assumption would be that as new tech came out, Dr. Dreon would change it for the class, for the next iteration of the class. As far as the learner support category, all policies for learners are clearly posted on the main overview page. Technical support is available. There's the cafe session or discussion section set up for students to help troubleshoot others. So as far as the discussion lists go, if I go there, you'll see that there's like a help forum. And lastly, as far as accessibility goes, I did not have a lot of accommodations that I needed. However, there were a couple things that I know were done to this course page to set up for accessibility. One specifically being how the page resizes when you bring the page down in size. The left justification shows up, so the course shrinks to the appropriate size here for a screen reader to read. Sorry if that was a little confusing. I also have noticed that there is not a lot of alt text I was able to bring up for the video here. You can see there's no alt text expressed for that video. However, that is kind of hard and maybe limited by Desire to Learn. So I'm not quite sure if that is a possibility. As far as connecting the chapters from the book, this class definitely shows differentiation between lessons. The chapters in the book expressed that keeping content new and interesting for the learners is really important. It expressed that students can easily become bored when you don't change up the modality in which the stuff's being presented. I also determined that there's a lot that goes into the design of the workspace of an online classroom. I'm really impressed by the QM rubric and how many of the points Dr. Dreon's class was able to meet. The class also allows for students to communicate their interpretation of content through discussion, which is a super important tool in online classes. There's no way to establish, or there's no established way to create these responses, as long as the content is expressed and we follow in the discussion what was expected as far as the netiquette. Dr. Dreon, allows us to kind of add extra stuff and make sure we're furthering the educational process. In reference to my lesson specifically, I hope to meet, the recommendations of the rubric as best I can for this lesson. Because it's a lesson I'll use in my face-to-face class, I'll be able to bypass some of the overview portions. However, the design should still take some of this into account. I also need to make sure that I make my objectives very clear and establish, concise reasons why we're doing things. My materials will have to meet the PA standards for 8th grade, as expressed in the standards 2.3 and 4.5. I also want to make sure I have the best represent my standards with content that I picked for my lesson. I want to make sure that it's, meaningful and not busy work. So that's about all the time I have. Hopefully this leads to some good discussions and we can build off of this. Thank you very much.